going to have, there's a choice today between coffee and chai. Be precise, have clarity, yes or no. How many people want chai? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 chais. How many people want coffee today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 coffee. And आपको मंगाना वो चाय. ठीक है? नहीं, कुछ नहीं. Next. Okay. So I think we're. Not just the pot.
Oh, okay.
Guji बोलते बोलने दूसरे बनाना. तो आप लोग बात करो.
All right, so what we did here.
Okay, so now we have our afternoon chocolate, classic chocolate chip cookies with Gina, who's going to be assisted by Ron.
Okay, all right, everybody, here we go. So basically, the thing with baking is you gotta follow the recipe. You just have to stick with the recipe as much as you can. It's not intuitive. All right, so what we did here is we're gonna make 2 batches. Each batch makes about 36 cookies. So we've got, just to take a backup step, I want to introduce you to a couple of my favorite ingredients. Ghirardelli 60% chocolate chip cookies, chocolate chips. Oh my God. And also, I have to say, because I am not a super duper biologist baker, I use a pre-made gluten-free one-on-one baking flour pre-made by Bob's Red Mill, which I'm not sure if they're organic or not, but they're good. They're organic, yeah. An employee-owned company. I love them, and basically I use their recipe with my egg substitute mixture.
Where do you get that?
You can get this at a health foods, pretty much any health food store, and a lot of the local grocery stores are carrying Bob's now too. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Right?
Great.
Yeah, I think so. So they I know they carry some products. So, but when in doubt, a health food store. So that's that. And I like those chips. And basically, the chocolate chip recipe is divided into 2 sections. You've got your dry section, your wet section, then you mix it all together, and then your final adding your chips and your walnuts. So what we did before you guys came in is Ron and Jackie and I added our dry components together, which are simply 2 1/4 cups of the Bob's, and you'll have all this information on your handouts. 1 teaspoon baking soda and 1 teaspoon salt. Those are your dry mixture. You want to either whisk them. It's not necessary to sift them, and I'm going to defer to Jackie and Ron in certain questions. Did you sift your dry mixture?
Not for cookies.
No, we don't either. Okay, good. So that's that. So those are your dry mixture, and you want to start by getting your, at least I like to do it. Some people cook where they get things as they need them. I like to do it this way, where you have everything out and you can just go boom, boom, boom through it, right?
Absolutely. Can't think of it any other way.
You know? Just, you know, you put it out, at least with baking, you know. Okay, so then you want to put your oven on preheat. Now, we have a convection oven here, and so generally speaking, you reduce, and I'm looking at Ron and Jackie because again, they are experts, you reduce the temperature that you're going to bake if you're going to bake for convection. So if the recipe calls for 375, which this recipe does, a temperature of 375, what we're going to do is cooking on convection bake, we're going to bring that down to 350. So that's pretty standard?
Just increments of 25.
Why do you do that? Why do you do that with convection?
Ron, I'm going to defer to you.
Because hot air is being circulated by the fan in there, so it's a much more even temperature, and it just cooks faster.
So is that with baked goods plus other food, or just baked goods you reduce?
Everything.
Everything, okay.
Everything. So, but if you, not to worry if you don't have convection at home, you do it at 375, and all this is on your recipes. So you get your oven ready, you get your cookie sheets ready, which we've got them over there ready to go. You get your ingredients ready, and then you get your recipe. So we got our dry ingredients here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our wet ingredients. This is very important. You want to make sure, because we did a dry run the other day, and what we learned was that if you let the butter get too wet, you have to soften the butter, and it should be, this is a really good example of how soft it should be, like clay, like in your hands. You don't want it too wet, because it'll get greasy, it'll make kind of greasy cookies, and if it's too hard, it'll be hard to mix. When I'm at home, I use those hand mixers, the little hand mixers. Here we're going to do this by hand. And get some exercise and do it. I think it's going to be fine. The mixers are very big here. I don't think we need to go there. And remind me later. I'll talk about, I'll come back to that. Okay, so you want it kind of soft and not wet, the butter. And so basically the recipe calls for creating our wet mixture with butter, 3/4 of a cup, and I'm reading this right off there. You beat the butter, the sugar, and the brown sugar, and the vanilla together. So we've got 2 sticks of butter per batch. And so we're going to put the brown sugar in. And Ron, I'm going to let you do your wet version there. You've got your 3/4 a cup of brown sugar. You can use light or dark brown sugar. We like dark brown sugar. It's got more punch. Yeah. And also 3/4 a cup of white sugar. Now, a lot of times when Tim and I bake, we cut back on the sugar because it's just not necessary to have as much sugar. But I have to say, in these cookies, it's necessary. So you have to watch how many you eat.
I always like
It's just, some recipes really do okay by cutting back on the sugar. And chocolate chip is just not one of them, right? Would you agree?
You don't mess with the classics.
Would you agree? Yeah, no, not the classic. Okay, so again, we've got the butter, the brown sugar, the white sugar, and you're going to need your vanilla. And it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla per, is this a teaspoon? It's really worn out. Wow, these have been around. Cool, okay, great. So we're gonna, so this is gonna be a little tricky. Now, again, if you had, you gonna be able to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If not, we'll resort to the KitchenAid.
We'll resort to the KitchenAid if it doesn't work. Now what we're gonna do before you actually start that, so I'm gonna do a teaspoon each. Vanilla is something I sometimes like to put more of in.
Me too.
But we're going to follow like a scientist. We're going to do it straight. And then once you do it straight, as Tim says, then you can encourage to experiment.
J. Tim.
Yeah.
J. Tim. Exact.
I am channeling Tim. And in a true spirit of scientist, as Vivek well knows, you must write down what you do.
Yes.
You must write it down because when it works, great. You won't remember, and if you don't, and if it doesn't work, you want to avoid it the next time around. So you can see my handwritten notes because I did a dry run earlier this week. So I've tweaked this just a tiny bit. I'll give you the edits.
Okay.
All right. So now I'm going to hold this just for 1 second. I'm going to ask you to just. No, I'm not going to. I'm just going to hold this for just 1 second because what's going to make this really, the directions directly say, to beat the butter, the brown sugar, and the vanilla in a large bowl till creamy. Now, if we had the electric, it would probably beat easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare, the egg mixture is going into here. If you were going to use eggs, you could put them in now, and it would probably help make this easier to blend. The egg mixture is a little bit of a specialty in and of itself. So I'm going to take this side a sidetrack, a little diversion here to talk about the egg. Because you know what? I had no idea. I just learned this myself. Not having a lot of experience cooking without eggs. Tim came up with this. I don't know, it's pretty standard, would you say, this mixture? Let me I'm going to talk you through what's in here. The dry ingredients for the egg mixture. So you want to prep this ahead of time. And you could actually keep this in a this mixture itself in a sealed jar in your kitchen, you know, dry for as long as you want. And this mixture is sifted together. And the ingredients in this are quite a few different ingredients. Potato flour, tapioca flour, baking powder, baking soda, cornstarch, finely ground flaxseed, and then the water. So what Tim does is he grinds the flaxseed in a high-speed coffee grinder, then mixes the fresh flax flour with all the other dry ingredients. Then you take 2.5 tablespoons, which is what you're looking at here, of the dry mixture, and he actually sifted this together to get it nice and mixed. And then took 2.5 tablespoons of the completed dry mixture and put it into a small bowl. Now, we're going to add a total of 8 tablespoons of water, starting with the first 6 to this. Oh, that's good. It's coming along, and this is going to make it easier, right? Right. So tablespoon. Okay. So we're going to start with 6, and you're going to want a little fork, okay? And
Is the water cold?
1,
It's just straight out of the tap. So it's like
3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, great. And that just gets mixed. It's
What are the quantities of the tapioca flour and the potato flour?
oh, they're on page 1. The bottom of page 1?
On the back.
Oh, on the back. Okay, you got it. Okay, great. And so this is going to be viscous, and kind of gooey, and you want to get the lumps out within the first 6 tablespoons of water, so that, and this is going to be the equivalent of 2 eggs. So I'm going to do the 6 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that question, Shanti, about the temperature of the water, that's a good question, and that's something we should check with Tim, because he might have some ideas about what that should be.
I'll get you a fork.
Just a fork, thanks, Mary Sue. But as far as I know, it's just right out of the tap.
Because it's just sometimes
Yeah. See this?
warm water will cause things to seize up. You know,
These are the
it'll be-
fussy ones.
Now, you're ready. You got most of the lumps out?
Pretty much.
Thanks, honey. So, just mix that up. It's very gooey.
Now, do you feel like with the gluten-free that they don't rise as much as regular? Is there a difference in like, do you need to put more egg or something if you're using the gluten-free?
I haven't found that to be, now, we did these, does anybody remember the chocolate chips, the classic chocolate chips a couple of weeks ago from Navaracha? They were looked pretty normal to me.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to be, now Tim and I have this ongoing kind of discussion. Not quite an issue, but whether, we'll get to that when we're actually placing the dough on the cookie sheet.
Okay.
Okay, so
Call it an ongoing conversation.
conversation.
A little softer.
Yes, okay, exactly. Discussion.
guess
So
we won.
you need 2 more juries out still. You guys can help decide that. So yeah, we have 6. Now we're going to add 2 more. And you're going to see the consistency. And I'll show it to you again. It's going to.
Change dramatically.
Yeah, this is like, yeah, well, it's gonna get thinner. It's like day 4 of a bad head cold versus day 6 of a bad head cold. Sorry, I couldn't resist. It's very. You're winning.
What's it smell like, man?
It's not altogether pleasant.
It's kind of like oatmeal-ish, right?
Yeah.
Little oatmeal-ish, right? No, so when I put the cookies on the sheet, I like to clump them. And Tim likes to pat them down and flatten them. Decide for yourself. We can experiment with both. Yeah, see how thick this is? And then what's that? See the difference?
Gina, we need both side by side to be able to decide.
The 2.
No, the 2 options you just.
Yes, we have to do them both, so
Yeah.
you can decide. Yeah, today we will do that.
True scientist.
Exactly.
Controlled experiment.
And then you want to get those lumps out, and it's just. Yeah, so that's before the last 2, so I'm gonna add a little bit more, and then we're ready to just. It's kind of eggy. Yeah, you know.
Like eggy.
It's kind of eggy.
So Gina, is it either 6 to 8 tablespoons?
I'm thinking 8. I'm thinking 8.
That's where the variation lies between the 2.
No, we start with, no, it's not a variation in quantity, it's an application. 6 to start with, get the lumps out, then finish it off with your last 2. Good question, thank you. All right, so now Ron's gonna add that wet mixture into that wet mixture and blend it all up. And again, by hand we're doing it here. You can do this part of it with electric mixer if you.
So does that equal 2 eggs per batch?
2 eggs per, yeah. The recipe calls for 2 eggs, so each one of these is 2 eggs because we've split this into 2,
Right.
2 batches. Okay. This is just gonna take.
This may sound stupid, but why are you using a wooden spoon instead of a metal?
You know, I think Ron had asked me if I liked the wooden spoon, and at the moment he asked me, I said, yeah, I like it, but then I didn't realize it wasn't gonna, I don't think it's gonna work as well. So I think I'm gonna switch over. Thank you.
It does have a nice vibe though.
I do like the wooden spoons. Because I have one at home that I use. Okay. Thank you, Mandir. Yeah.
Now I actually want this.
Yeah, because this bends, this spoon bends, because it's tough.
Yeah, it's flexible, that's why.
It's flexible, yeah, it works. Did the, yeah, that's exactly how it should look over Ron's.
It's so tempting to just add some water.
Well, as soon as we add the eggs to this, it's going to be that much easier, but I don't want to add it too soon. Because usually, usually at home, I don't know, is there any risk of over mixing, Ron?
I don't think you're doing this, you can.
How about with an electric? With this?
Wrong direction.
Yeah, this is called creaming.
Not a cookie. I know what when you get the flour in there.
I'm waiting to take the samples.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so I knew that you had to be careful, but I wasn't sure why. So did you guys hear that? Once we add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients, we do that by hand. You have to be careful not to overdo that, because it can get tough. It can make the...
It'll start developing, well, it wouldn't matter in this case. There's no gluten in this, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's the gluten?
Yeah, you start to
Okay.
develop gluten with
You're stretching it out.
All right.
Oh, now it looks silky, look at that.
Right? Okay, so now I didn't even add the egg yet. So now I'm going to add the eggs. Mixture, replacement mixture. And it's definitely fun baking with an assistant. Because, anyone? It's just fun because you can help each other do the measuring, and sometimes I like to cook by myself in the kitchen, and some things, especially baking, there's so much measuring to do, and
It's a lot of,
You need
a lot of stuff to do.
your jokes.
yeah, there's
A lot of stuff, so it helps each other to get it
Yeah,
done.
to get it done, exactly. When I was young, I used to do a lot of baking because it's comfort food, And then as I got older, I did more cooking because it's functional and necessary. But for me, baking is always a treat. It always represents kind of a comfort level. Okay, so now,
Cookies that I'm trying to see.
and the great thing about cookies is they generally take only about 10 minutes to, and once you get it all together, here's that butter is still, you want to make sure everything's well blended before you start adding the flour, because the flour, the next step will be adding this wet mixture to the dry mixture, and so before you do that, you do want to make sure it's very mixed, and that's where an electric blender at this stage for this guy would be fine and helpful. But electric blender, I tried it the other day at this stage, because now we're going to add the wet to the dry, and I tried to do it with an electric. It just sticks to the what do you call them? The
Heaters.
Thank you. And it's a mess, so that didn't work.
They always say that when you overbeat a cake, that it gets more tough.
Mm-hmm.
Have you learned that, Gina? So you have to be careful, they tell you, in the recipes,
yeah.
right, Ron, don't...
Yeah, because that's what you're doing, you're developing
The
gluten,
gluten,
so it makes it...
The gluten is what can get tough. So again, we're gluten-free here, but I still... All right, so now Ron's got his dry ingredients, I've got mine, and the directions read to
Royal and gluten free.
add
What do
the
you
egg
think?
mixture which we just did, and then gradually add the flour mixture and beat well until blended. The recipe says beat, but it's going to be mixing by
So
hand.
you're going dry into wet.
You're going dry into wet, and you're going to do a little bit at a time because it's just too much to do it all at once, and it works better.
Gina, I might have missed it, I don't know if you already said it, but what kind of flour are you using?
Oh, yeah. I like the prefabricated Bob's Red Mill.
Oh.
It's one-on-one baking flour, it's called. And it's an easy pre-made, and it's a good company.
Free.
So the one-on-one, does that mean that it's just identical to regular flour?
Yeah, so the regular recipe calls for,
One.
and it's the same, so it's a substitute, it's a one-on-one substitute.
Did you make pie with it yet?
No, I actually haven't.
Oh.
We could try that next week for Thanksgiving, though. Oh, I'm doing it the other way.
Yeah.
Oops, thank you. That caught me, and I'm like,
Well, that's not really an experiment if you do it the other way. Not following the directions.
that's not consistent. Uh-oh.
Is there a margin?
Dry into wet.
This is the control.
Dry into wet, folks. I did this at home, too. Okay. This is where it gets a little... And that's where also a partner in the kitchen helps, because they can pour it in slowly as you do your beating. And it brings you together.
Or not.
We do, that's one thing that Tim and I do together a lot, is cook every night.
Easy run.
Uh-oh, did you do? Oopsie. Got it?
You got it.
Oopsie.
What were we saying about partners again?
Oh, well.
Hey, they're on my fly. Oh, well, you can have some of mine.
See how,
This gets pretty, you're like, oh God, I can't add another tablespoon of flour.
Build up your biceps.
Yeah. You can't.
Yeah.
Exciting.
I will say, Ron, what would you say is the most important part of this recipe to keep an eye on?
He might have too much flour.
You're partying.
What's your partner?
Shall we work it opposite of the James?
That was his takeaway.
Wow.
We can make this into a competition.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that. See how nice that
There
is?
we go.
So don't lose hope. Just keep going with it.
And a little extra flour.
And look towards the finish line, which is the best part, which is putting in the chips and the nuts. And then eating it, of course.
And that's the finish. Adding it to my...
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a couple more turns.
Good for you.
The assistant is over.
I don't like to add more flour than I can handle at once, and everybody's,
you just take your time.
strength levels are different.
Take it.
I could see those muscles coming, Gina.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing good. See, Ron's got it all around because he does this all the time.
Wow.
Chick roll is fine enough to-
Do you want to work on that one, and I'll add the chips to it? You're all holding. You go.
No, let it go. He's got it now. Give it to him.
Hang on, yeah, on the side.
Yeah, all right, you got an assistant. Let him
This
do
is
it.
the hardest part.
There's a chunk on the side.
Oh, there's more flour.
Oh, have some more, Ron.
Thank you.
Where'd all this flour come from?
All right.
That's the stuff he gave to her.
Well, he's finishing that up.
Let's move on.
So,
He's kind of slow.
no, while he's doing that, actually, it gives me an opportunity to talk about organization. Yeah. You know, I'm a kitchen designer by profession, and I can't tell you how many kitchens I go into where people want new kitchens, And really what they really need is to clean what they have, to organize what they have, and to purge what they haven't used. You know the old saying, if you haven't used it in a year and a half, out, get rid of it. And you don't need to have a lot in your kitchen to have a really well-functioning kitchen. And contrary to popular belief, a big kitchen is not the best kind of kitchen to work in. A smaller kitchen where you can get from the refrigerator to the sink, to the range, and to your storage is actually the best. So if we have time, I have a little, and we're going to include it on your handouts. Some tips for organization in the kitchen. Really simple, basic, not design so much as just organization. And it's common sense, but I'm forever astounded at how, I mean, even for me, somebody who does this for a living, for just tips and tricks about storing things. And like one of the things all my customers want is to hide the things that they use every day, because they want a clean kitchen. But that's not going to promote you using that Cuisinart or that juicer that's going to make you that healthy recipe that you want, if you have to dig in and get it out. So if they insist on that, I put it in a place that's easily accessible. I call it prime real estate in the kitchen. You've got prime real estate, which is closest to your work triangle, and then you've got secondary real estate, which is where you put the things that you don't have to access every day. So we work like that. But you definitely want to think about things like that. So this is just a couple of pages on those tips and tricks. And certainly if you have questions about anything having to do with your kitchen, I'm available after for questions. Consultation. Okay, we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Nice job.
So much easier.
It's here. Until Tim.
He can't lift his arms anymore, but he's...
What? I didn't hear that. I didn't hear it.
Extra cup of coffee.
All right. Now with the nuts, it was funny because Jackie said, "How do you like to chop your nuts?" You can chop it with a knife, which is how Jackie did these to help us prep this. And you can also take the nuts, measured out, like there's a cup of nuts per batch, I believe. Yeah. Walnuts. And you don't have to have walnuts in it if you don't want. You can also do almonds, but they're harder to chop. I take the cup and I put it in, and then I take like something like this, and I just crunch them down, the big walnuts, if they're half walnuts. Or you can also use a knife. What you don't want is you don't want to cut it too fine, because then you're going to have walnut flour. And you don't want walnut flour. And you don't want the pieces too big or too small. Just right.
So it's a cup when they're whole, but not...
Cup when they're whole.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. But you can always play with that too. It's not so precise. Some people like more nuts, some people less. So they just go in like that. And then, now something that came up the other night is we did mini cookies. And Tim pointed out that if you're going to do small cookies, you should do small chips. Because they overtake proportionately. Scale. It's all about scale. But these chips are perfect for the regular standard size cookie. And we're going to put 2 cups of chocolate chips into each batch. Right, and they make, that's 20 ounces is 4 cups. So one of those double bags, which is less money. 1. And try not to nibble them away while you're cooking. Or while they're waiting in the pantry for you to do the recipe. Like, you
got a little chocolate.
You gotta make sure that you have to check them to make sure they're...
Yeah, you have to make sure that they're good. And there you go. And then you mix those up, and then we're going to add the other 2, which is the whole package, right to there. And so just like with everything else in life, you want to make sure, like you want to do whatever you can to make, to optimize the use of your kitchen, optimize it. And as a designer, I believe that if your environment is orderly, to a certain extent, orderly, relatively clean, then your mind will most likely not give you trouble in doing it, going there, doing the recipe, getting to the gym. You have everything is in order in the bag. The bag is in the car. All you have to do is get your body into the car.
Went to the gym now.
Reaching your mark.
Right, exactly, right. So if you have and that talks about that, have your ingredients, your dry, ingredients in the cupboard. You have things organized. You enjoy the way it feels when you enter into the room that you're going to be doing the work that you're doing. It's relatively clean and organized. The rest is a piece of cake.
Visit California.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we might be doing a kitchen in Costa Rica. So, yeah. And this doesn't need that much because what you're going now, some people, so it's pretty much mixed already. So that's why you want to make sure that before you add the chips and before you add the nuts, it's really mixed. Thank you, Ron. Because otherwise, it's going to be too tough to get unevenness out at this stage of the game. All right. That's it. We're ready to go. Are we on time?
Ready for the pan,
We're just
right?
fine.
Oh, good.
I've
Okay.
been looking at the clock.
Okay, good. So there we go. So you want to obviously you want to make sure at this stage, if you haven't already, which we should have gone back with, before you come in the kitchen, the first thing you really want to do is wash your hands. But if you haven't already, you want to make sure your hands are clean, because I generally don't use scoopers like this. I generally use a spoon like this. So you don't have to grease, right? Jackie, Ron, when do you use parchment paper or grease?
All the time.
You do? And what is that? See, I
Well,
don't.
it's like clean up for nothing else.
Should we do it?
Yeah.
We could do one
Okay.
with and one
Do one
without.
without, you can see the.
We could see, yeah, because the pans that I use at home have they're non-stick.
Oh, maybe do too.
Yeah, let's use it then. Thanks, Ron. So I guess the answer to that would be experiment for yourself. At home, I don't need the parchment, but here we can. It's going to be an easier cleanup. I think the most important thing about the recipe is actually monitoring the time in the oven and pulling them out at the right time. Some people like their chocolate chips underdone. The worst is what I did the other day. I overdid them. And they were crunchy and crackly and raw, I mean, the taste and the flavor was still there, but nice, thanks. It didn't have that chewiness, which is so.
But you still ate it.
Oh, yeah. And, and actually, since there's no eggs in them, I mean, you can't really hurt. So how do you tell whether the cookies are done? It's going to be looks, it's going to be experience, right? And it's going to be, you don't want them to be brown on the bottom. We'll get to this. We'll inspect it. We'll put a timer on. Basically, the amount of time, in addition to the temperature change for going from regular to convection, you're going to have a time change. It's going to be a couple of minutes less for cookies. So you want to watch both of them. And again, we have this in the recipe. And so it's the time, and then you kind of watch it and see. And so in terms of getting these on, obviously we can make them any size. This I think is too big.
Let me see if there's a smaller one.
No, this is fine though.
Okay.
I do it.
Oh, she's starting.
I do it, by experience, and I want to make sure I do them about that big.
Yeah.
It's like a hefty tablespoon. And then what I try to do is keep it consistent. And again, okay, so Tim does this.
Yeah, right.
And I do that. What do you think? You do like a ball. Yeah, like a ball, right. So we could do an experiment. So I think the idea would be to try to keep them the same size, because they're gonna cook at the same rate then. No, right, doesn't that make sense?
Makes sense.
And then about that far apart. And, yeah, sorry.
When you make it, sorry. So when you make it into a ball, is it gonna come out like a ball?
No, the butter will make it, the butter will melt in the shake.
So they're gonna
In
spread
theory.
out, yeah.
Yeah, and you can always go back and add a little touch. And then when I'm actually pulling it out, I'm looking to make sure that I have chips and nuts and kind of,
Equally in each one.
right, yeah, exactly. And they're also more or less the same size. And that's it.
So if they go down, why are they called chubbies?
No, the chubbies are a different,
You missed that part.
Oh, I missed that part.
a different recipe altogether.
Oh, okay.
Not all together, but they have added chocolate to them. They have added, so they're dark in color,
Oh, okay.
and they're like double chocolate chips.
Okay.
The dough is dark chocolate too.
So these are just chocolate chip cookies?
These are classic chocolate chips.
Okay.
Vegan.
Because
Vegan,
And gluten-free.
it's gluten-free.
the best, as far as I can tell, the best recipe.
How's it vegan if it's got butter, right?
All of them.
They're butter,
It's not vegan,
Not vegan.
It's not vegan.
it's just gluten.
butter, yeah, gluten-free, egg-free. Just have-
Hair-free. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I didn't tie my hair.
But you can make it, yeah.
So should we flatten a few to like half a sheet? So you get a feel, you get a feel for what's the right size, and I always tend to do them like a little bit larger.
Yeah.
I'm kind of heavy-handed with everything I do.
It goes faster that way.
And it goes faster, right? You can feel it, that's thin, and then you can just add a little. And you can always pinch off. If done right, about this size, my experience is that you get about 3 dozen per batch. 3 dozen per batch, 36. Yeah. Give or take.
What did you use for sweetener?
Yeah.
Brown sugar and white sugar. And we talked about this. This is not, no, that's right, no, I just mean we talked about how some recipes you can cut back on the sugar content or substitute sugar and stuff, when you want to, but not this one. If you want that classic chocolate chip, you gotta have brown sugar and white sugar, and you have to have it in. Yeah, and you can't cut back, it's just, I mean, you can, but
What if you did it with just
Hello. Do you like this recipe?
I think it'll be wonderful. I'm dying to try it.
That one's class.
you want flat size? It's the scientist. It's the scientist in you. Yeah, no, we'll do a half the sheet flattened. Yeah. So,
I heard you say half, but then this is, you've gone past.
yeah, we'll do from here back. So, what
Don't
Tim
push
does.
your
Just saying, I mean, that's not half, that's like.
No cookies for
So we'll do a Tim's kind of flattening. And then whenever that happens, I always stick a chocolate chip on top.
What's that one that has so much chocolate?
You're gonna put your
You
name on
know,
Are you doing the flat ones?
I'm doing some flat ones the way Tim
Does
does.
he just do those?
Oh, pretty much like, yeah, he does it with this, And we'll see. This one still feels a little bit short.
Princeton's getting a little worked up back here because he says, now wait a minute. What if they were pushed a little bit more?
Yeah, it's the scientists, and they can't help themselves.
I told him.
They can't.
You're gonna need more cookies.
I told him you're talking yourself out of a cookie.
Give them the flat ones, a couple of round ones.
Yeah, but that's what I said in the beginning, that I'm more of the cook and Tim is more of the baker because of that scientific approach, that kind of very precise. And when they start to get warm too, they get a little sticky. So we're doing the flats, where Vivek insisted that we try the experiment, just see what, not that I was against it.
I want to know, are these guiltless?
No, they're definitely not. No, but there's, and this is really hard, because I'm on a protocol right now where sugar is too much sugar, too much of anything is no good for you, right?
Yeah.
So what you have to do is you have to limit yourself. If you have issues with sugar, you have to know that too much of it is not good. So learning how to have one and be satisfied is a whole nother lesson, right? Have one or two and be satisfied.
Right. Not
Right.
7,
Right,
right?
right, not 7, yeah. Not the whole bar of chocolate, which I could easily do. Right. So I have found over the years that I would rather, personally, have 1 or 2 things of quality and call it a day. Like I'll have a 70% piece of dark chocolate to quell my sugar cravings when I'm not supposed to be having any sugar. Just a little piece of very good quality dark chocolate and be done with it. And enjoy it.
Yep.
That's a whole nother,
Makes sense.
it's a whole nother story. Yeah.
So Gina, do you want more trays?
I guess we're gonna need some more trays. So how are we doing? We've got 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 4 is 28. Times 2 is 56. So yeah, we're on, and these are a good size too. I think these will be, don't you think, Ron? Perfect. Vivek, you think these are squished enough?
I don't know how Tim does it.
That's kind of how he does it. And then I keep them very plump and high.
It's a Shiva Shakti thing, scientist and a creative energy.
How that goes too, I'll learn something from that too.
So, Gina, would it be crispier, you make them flatter? Are they crispier around because they're flat?
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out because we're gonna cook these at the same amount of time. So we'll find out if, that's a good question, if the way that they're shaped affects the skin or, the outside. I don't. Could be possible.
In some way. You like cake?
Okay. So we're ready to put the, do we want to put 2 in? Or do you want to, now this oven takes how many sheets?
It'll probably take, you could take 5.
You could take 5? Let's put 2 in. We're gonna put 2 in, because at home we usually do 2 at a time. In a regular size oven. And then, so are we gonna have a full 27, hang on, we're probably only gonna need 1 more sheet.
How long are you?
Yes, good question. Very important timing. That piece of paper with the recipe on it, I have some handwritten notes from my dry run earlier this week. Because on it I had 11 to 13 minutes, but we are going to do 10 minutes is better. 10 minutes, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to set the timer at 8.5 minutes.
And check it.
And we're gonna check it. And this way we'll learn something by seeing how it progresses. It's a hard call because even the lighting the lighting is really, how it looks is when you know when it's done, and sometimes the lighting is different.
You can see it in this oven or everything like that,
Yeah. And then when you pull them out of the oven, they look a little different. So we're gonna cut it back. So, but with convection, 10 minutes is better. And also as an option that you could do that I didn't do today, that Tim likes to do, is to add a couple of tablespoons of coconut flakes to this, which is an option. Sweetened or unsweetened.
That's toasted or?
Just straight, yeah. That's just like another option.
Do you
It
ever
keeps
freeze,
you,
do you ever freeze the batter, like make it?
no, but I think that's no problem. What do you say, Ron and Jack?
Yeah, probably not. It's probably no problem.
They don't,
Nobody can just slice it.
I think, let's work on one sheet. I'm not sure if we're gonna have enough to do more sheets. What?
There is no, it's all gluten-free.
It's all the
Oh,
same.
it's all gluten-free.
Yeah, it's all the same. These two batches are the same.
It's all for you.
Yeah, it's all for you. You'll eat them all.
Yeah.
You and Jason.
So, as much as I'm thrilled about it.
Well, I know, you think, yeah, it's like, well, it's great, they're gluten-free, but that is one thing you have to watch with gluten-free is that just because it's gluten-free, it could actually have
Well, it's the sugar.
sugar. Yeah.
Yeah, the sugar is what's
So that's
not
something else, that's another story.
Yeah. But if it's gluten-free, at least people who are into gluten-free can at least have it.
That's right, you can enjoy a treat.
Yeah,
Yep.
not be piggish.
That's what's so nice about having more access to the gluten-free.
And I find that the gluten-free, everybody when Ron and Jackie put out gluten-free, everybody eats it and loves it. It's not really something like you have to have gluten-free because that's ick. It's always wonderful.
It took me a long time to get used to it, but now I'm working on juicing, how to juice and how to do all that. And again, it's all about setting up the kitchen, having it, make it easy for yourself.
User-friendly.
User-friendly, yeah, yeah. So that it promotes, you get past all the mental stuff, the resistance.
Yeah.
So, you
Also,
stock
when
the
you're
kitchen.
seeing everything every day, it gives you more incentive to go and do it. If you don't see it, you get lazy.
Now, so here I'm noticing that there's this batch of batter that's kind of, doesn't have chips or nuts in it, so I'm stirring it up a little bit.
Does Ron still have some over there you want to mix it in with?
For quality control.
Yeah, quality control. Exactly. Thank you, Dave. He's good. You're good?
Yeah, I've been mixing this up.
You've been mixing it. He's been doing this without telling us. His little tips and tricks. Now, in terms of cooking for quantity, that would be something I'd have to defer to you guys, the chefs here for, because I've never done that before, as much as I would like to learn how to do that. But, like cooking for a large quantity of people, even baking for a large quantity of people, how does that change things, Ron?
It's a lot more.
Not more. Okay. Who's got the timer? Who's in charge of the timer?
We have a timer.
You got a timer on? Okay, great. It's on the oven? Okay, good. Oh, that's it. Great. Somebody just pass this over to the... Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go, Gina. He's gaining on you.
He's gaining on me?
You're so fun in the kitchen.
Me? I got another side to me.
I'm sure you do, but we haven't seen it. I like this.
I behaved myself. Well, I'm honored to be here and participating and offering this lesson, or demonstration, I should say, really. Okay, I need a chipper. You got it? Yeah. Can you make one out of that?
Yeah.
Nice job. A little bit more.
That's the jumbo.
The jumbo cookie. That's Gordev's. Okay. All right. And I'm just gonna rinse. Oh, and we're not putting these in yet though, or are we? Or are we? We're not gonna put the second ones in yet, right, okay. All right, great, let me just rinse off and check and see, and then we'll bring